Hey guys, we're going to start off chapter 11 here, learning how to graph square root functions. So pay attention to this goal here. Our goal here is to graph square root functions, so that's what you're going to be focusing on. Hopefully when you're finished with this lesson, you should feel pretty confident about how to do that. Okay, so a square root function is just a function where the x is underneath the square root. Okay, so the way you do something like this is you're going to have to make an xy table. Okay, but I'm going to pick specific x's that allow us to get perfect squares, because I don't want to come up with like the square root of 2 or square root of 3 and guess on something like that, or use a calculator. Instead, I'm going to use things that I know the square root of. So 0, I know the square root of 0. All right, so if x is 0, then y is also going to be 0, because y is the square root of 0, right, which is 0. All right, I'm also going to use 1, because if I plug in 1 for x, square root of 1, I know, is 1. And I'm going to use 4, because I know the square root of 4 is equal to 2. Okay, so these are my 3 basic points for the basic y equals square root of x graph. It's going to look just like that. Okay, so that curve where you have starting point, and you kind of go up and to the right, that's how you graph a square root function. So down here, right, I'm going to show you how we're going to manipulate this y equals square root of x graph. All right, 3 things are going to happen. First is this a, all right, so you can multiply the whole square root function by a coefficient. All right, and you multiply by a. What that a does is it affects the shape of the graph. Okay, so if a is bigger than 0, this is actually the exact same thing, or very, very similar to what we just did with the quadratics. All right, so if a is bigger than 1, right, so number between bigger than 1, then the graph is going to stretch vertically. So an example, if you see this, it's going to go up vertically like that, okay, if it's bigger than 1. If it's between 0 and 1, so a fraction that's still positive, but it's less than 1, it's going to shrink vertically. So for this, follow my little laser pointer, it's going to be closer to 0. It's going to stay closer like that, just like this. Okay, and if a is negative, okay, so less than 0, it's negative, then it's going to reflect over the x-axis, so it's going to be coming down this way. Okay, so if it's negative, it's going to be coming down this way. The h here is going to shift your graph horizontally. Okay, one thing to focus on here is it's a minus h. All right, it's a minus h, so we need the opposite of whatever's in here for actual h. All right, so that's going to shift us left and right. And lastly, the k here is shifting vertically up and down. All right, let's see a couple examples. Okay, so number 1 here, right, all of these, we're going to graph the function and we're going to identify the domain and the range. Okay, so for number 1, we're just going to, 1 and 2 just is going to have an a, so that's just going to change the shape of our graph just a little bit. Okay, so we're going to use our same x's, right, use the same x's. We're going to use 0, 1, and 4. And what's going to change, we're going to multiply whatever our answer is by 1/2 in order to get our y's. So for this one, we got 0.5 times the square root of 0, which is still 0. Okay, for the second one, we have 0.5 times the square root of 1, which is 1 times 0.5, which is 0.5. So 1 and 0.5. And the last one, 0.5 times square root of 4, is 2 times 0.5, which is 1. Okay, so if you see this graph, it's shrunk a little bit. It's a little bit skinnier, and it's going to go to the right a lot quicker. Okay, and number 2, same idea. XY table, 0, 1, and 4. All right, but now we're going to multiply our answer by negative 1.5. All right, for our square root. So the square root of 0 is 0. 0 times anything is 0, so we know we're still starting at that origin. The second one, we've got negative 1.5 times the square root of 1. Square root of 1 we know is 1. 1 times negative 1.5 is negative 1.5. It's going to be there. And the last one, we have square root of 4 is 2. 2 times negative 1.5 is negative 3. So 4 is going to be done at negative 3. So you can just connect those, draw your arrow, and that's what that graph looks like. All right, number 3, we have a k, but no h. All right, see this negative 2 here is a k because it's on the outside of the square root. So because that's going to shift us up and down. All right, so since it shifts us up and down, all right, basically what we're going to do is we're going to draw the exact same graph as our y equals square root of x, but just shift the whole thing down too. So for our x and y, if there's no h, then you always just use 0, 1, and 4. Okay, So to plug these in, we've got square root of 0 minus 2. 0 minus 2 is negative 2. So I could plot that point. Square root of 1 minus 2 is negative 1. And the square root of 4 minus 2 is 2 minus 2, which is 0. So the graph looks like that. It's the exact same shape as the y equals x square root of x graph. It's just shifted down 2. All right, number 4 is very similar to that, but we do have an h. Okay, so when you have an h, right, your x values are going to change, all right, based on the h. Right? Instead of 0 being your first one, h is going to be your first one. So if you see here, h is always the opposite of what's on the inside because remember it's x minus h. You can scroll up to the top to take a look at that. So my first value here in my xy table is going to be negative 2 because it's got to be the opposite of whatever's on the inside. Since the plus 2 on the inside, my first one is negative 2. Now from there, you can just follow the exact same pattern as the 0, 1, 4. So add 1 to get the next one, and then add 3 to that to get the last number. So add 1 to negative 2 to get negative 1, then add 3 to that to get 2. Now you can plug all these in, and we'll get all of our answers. So we'll have, no parentheses there. We've got square root negative 2 plus 2. Negative 2 plus 2 is 0. Square root of 0 is 0. So we have that point. Square root of negative 1 plus 2 is square root of 1, which is 1. And square root of 2 plus 2 is square root of 4, which we know is 2. So those are our 3 points, and that's what our graph looks like. Now the very last one here, right, we've got an A, an H, and a K. Okay, so in order to accommodate for all of those, right, we're going to have to plug in to the XY table. Okay, remember the X, if there is an H, which there is an H here, our H is 1. That's our starting point for our X values. So the opposite of that number on the inside of the square root is our H. That's 1, and that's what we're going to start at. All right, then to get the next ones, you add 1, add 3, and we'll plug them all in to our equation. 1 minus 1 plus 2. So we have square root of 0 is 0. 0 times 2 is 0. 0 plus 2 is 2. So 1, 2 is our first point. The next one, we have 2 minus 1 is 1. Square root of 1 is 1. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 plus 2 is 4. And the last one, we have square root of 5 minus 1 is 4. Square root of 4 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 plus 2 is 6. So 5, 6. And we see the curve of our graph looks like that. Okay, it's a little bit steeper. And that's all you got to do for section 1.
Chicago leads.